Good afternoon. I am Vanessa Thomas with the 12 o'clock news on the street 919 FM and online Facebook and YouTube, sponsored by the Sea Champion. In the headlines, the restrictions on activities permitted under the state of emergency currently in effect have been published. Hospital beds running out for COVID-19 patients. Tutor warns SCA pushed back as face-to-face classes stopped. And internationally, India's state braces for very severe cyclone. And now the news in detail. The restrictions on activities permitted under the state of emergency currently in effect have been published. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley on Saturday announced further restrictions on activities and movements to curb the country's COVID-19 spread. A legal notice number 142 introduced the Emergency Power Regulations 2021 and details the prohibitions, requirements and exceptions for the period of public emergency between 5:01 a.m. and 8:59 p.m. and during the curfew of 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. The regulations list the services considered essential and are allowed to operate for the duration of the state of emergency. Applications for curfew passes for exemptions must be sent to the Commissioner of Police. Provisions are made for the Commissioner of Police by order to vary the times set out in the regulations. Powers exercisable by the Commissioner and the general powers of police officers are also listed in the regulations. Anyone found in breach of these regulations is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $250,000 and to imprisonment for 6 months. Where work is concerned, the Attorney General this morning stated that if you can work from home, please do so. As of yesterday, 9 more people have died from contracting the coronavirus. They were identified as 3 elderly males, 1 middle-aged male with 1 elderly male, 1 middle-aged female, all with pre-existing medical conditions. 2 middle-aged males and 1 middle-aged female without prior health conditions. Meanwhile, bed spaces at hospitals across the country treating COVID-19 patients is running out. This according to Dr. Miriam Abdul-Richards, Principal Medical Officer in charge of health institutions. On Saturday, she said that the overall hospital capacity in the parallel healthcare system was 64%. She noted that 73% of the beds in Trinidad were full, as were 25% in Tobago. Dr. Abdul-Richards warned the public to please do not be comforted by the fact that there is 27% more occupancy level, as she indicated that a bed is no longer just a bed. And even though there may be physical beds, the resources that are required to give the sick the best level of care may not be and is not available. In more news, the Ministry of Education on Saturday announced the suspension of all face-to-face classes at schools that were open to facilitate students preparing for exams. The ministry, in a media release after the Prime Minister's announcement of a curfew and SOE, said all face-to-face classes at schools are suspended. All administrative operations at schools should be done as far as possible remotely, and all teaching and learning activities should be done remotely. With regards to the date for SCA, CSEC and CAPE, further information will be transmitted to the public during the upcoming week, the ministry added. On Saturday, the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association renewed its call to postpone the SCA exam until July because of rising numbers of COVID-19 infections and deaths. Thousands of pupils are scheduled to write the SCA on June 10th. Internationally, India's western state of Gujarat is braced for the landfall of a cyclone, Tauktae, which is likely to be the strongest to hit the region since 1998. The storm has roared up India's western coast over the past 2 days, with 6 people killed and thousands evacuated. Efforts are underway to rescue more than 400 people stranded off the coast in 2 commercial barges. The cyclone comes amid a second COVID-19 wave that has overwhelmed India's healthcare system. And that was the 12 o'clock news on the street 919 FM and online Facebook and YouTube, sponsored by the Sea Champion, recapping the headlines. The restrictions on activities permitted under the state of emergency currently in effect have been published. Hospital beds running out for COVID-19 patients. Tuta wants SCA pushed back as face-to-face classes stopped, and internationally, India's state braces for very severe cyclone. I am Vanessa Thomas. Good afternoon.
News from the street. 919fm.com.